So this one starts off with, we are the shoeless therapist. Not we, you are. So what socks do you have to show us today?
Okay, these ones come with a story.
Oh, okay. That is funny. Oh, tell me the story. We don't even need you. You just hold those up and talk behind them.
I almost thought that I should do my the webinar today on self-awareness versus self-absorbedness, because I'm wearing socks with my face on them.
Bold
So
move.
what's that?
Bold move.
Bold move. Yeah. So I came into a session one day and a client was wearing these. And I'm sorry, the look on your
Oh,
face.
sorry. I'm trying to be impassive. It's not really working. Sorry. Okay. So a client was wearing socks with your face on it.
Uh-huh. And I was like,
Okay.
oh, well, the client handed me socks with their face on it. And
Okay.
and I was sitting in that experience as we were doing the session or whatever, and probably took me 15 minutes to figure out that I said to the client, I said, hey, this is really funny, right? Because it was meant to be comical.
Uh-huh.
I said, the truth is, I can't wear these ever, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's a HIPAA violation. Even if you gave them to me, I don't feel comfortable wearing socks with your picture on it, with your face on it. And I said, if you want to, I mean, I go, if you want to trade, we can. Uh, and so we ended up trading. So now I have socks with my face on them. But it was quite it was funny. Like it was funny because I mean, it caught me off guard. And I just thought, hey, why not? I'll wear them today. And it comes with a funny little story.
It does. Yeah. That was, yeah.
The look,
And I
you
agree
need to
with it.
go back and look at the video and look at your face because it was incredible.
Okay. Caught
Because
off guard.
well, yeah, and I in that session I was like, wait, what? Like what is even happening? What am I supposed to do here? This is funny, it's a gift. Like therapists actually can't we can accept gifts if it's uh I mean, there's no dollar amount given, but it has to be small and not expensive. And clients will often actually, like I say often, like give me a pair of socks, because they're cheap.
That's your thing. But
And
yeah, that's your thing. So yeah,
and so I'm always like, oh my gosh, I'm gracious. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. But now I have a pair of socks with my face on them, and
there
it
you
just
go.
makes me look either just incredibly proud of my hair or self-absorbed or something. I don't know.
I'm fortunate. I get notes. I'm sure you do too, but I get, people and like even handwritten notes, people are sending me and I have, I keep them because they're, like they say kind things and that it's meaningful on their journey. That's all I care
Yeah,
about. So,
I had somebody after years of working with them and basically graduating them on, they gave me a Dr. Seuss book, and I think it was the places we'll
this is
go,
your goal. I figured it was. Yeah.
and they wrote me a sweet note in it, and I was like, that's really cool, like because I understand like the way we impact each other and that sort of thing. It was really cool.
Mhm.
And it's for me like it's really neat when somebody, if somebody they want to express gratitude. We all want to express gratitude for somebody who's impacted us. And I always find it kind of interesting because I'm like, yes, they're paying me because so that's like it's not like I did them a favor, right? Like but at the same time, like they know I care about them. They know I want to show up for them in that in very difficult, beautiful spaces. And so like I get it. Like I've been there as well, but it's like that, it's just kind of a funky little balance.
Yeah, yeah. But yes, this is this is difficult work, and to be, in the trenches with people and be willing to help support the journey, like, yeah, I mean, it is kind of people to acknowledge, that we're there with them. So I appreciate that.
Oh, totally.
So
Um,
what you got for us today?
you know what? I'm gonna run through injuries, and I
Mm,
will actually try and run through. I'll see if we have time, we'll get through kind of the steps of repairing injury.
okay.
As simply as we can, because injury is complicated, and so the repair of injury is going to be complicated. But it's interesting because relationship traumas um, are essentially disconnection during moments of high like fragility or need, during moments of like loss, illness, uncertainty. So like if you look at it, there's a lot of relationship traumas that if we were able to think about it, we would be more aware of their possibility. So, for
Mm,
instance, you have a couple and maybe they're expecting a child. Um, the birth of a child and the raising of a child and the early stages of that child are going to create fragility in individual lives. So,
mhm,
uh, fatigue because we're getting up at all hours feeding this baby. There's disconnection between for us as a couple just because it's almost like, okay, are you taking the baby or am I, like, and this little beautiful wonderful thing is now coming between us in very real and healthy ways, like, because that's what's to be expected, if that makes sense.
mhm,
So, and then if you like, I have one of my friends that had twins, him and his wife had twins,
mhm,
and like you look at that and go like that's like order of magnitude, four times as worse, and I don't know how to even, than having one child, right? Like, and so we there are certain things we can predict. Grad school is another one that couples will often say, man, grad school nearly killed us, nearly
hmm,
killed our relationship. So job changes, job loss, right? There's these moving from one home to
hmm,
another, right? There's certain things that if we think about it, if we just start talking as a couple and go, hey, we've got this thing coming up, we've decided to do this, like we're gonna be honestly on thin ice for a while with each other because life, this is just how it is. And I'm trying to remember, like, loss of a child, like a death of a child, the divorce rate, if I remember right, it's like 80 something percent that you get a divorce if you've lost a child. And so like these are the things that I mean, and you can't prepare for that, right? We can't have a conversation around that. That's typically gonna be something obviously sudden. Um, but and then you've got things like disclosure, whether it's planned or unplanned, is going to cause trauma. Like it's going to cause disconnection. Um, and so the struggle is that sometimes people think like, um, with an injury, we can just kind of go around it. Like let's just work through it. Go around it rather, or that time actually heals it. And I always tell people time is crap. If you're not tending to the wound, time is making it worse. You have to go through it. You have to tend to the wound. Um, you have to give it the care that it needs, and only then will time actually heal a wound. But if we look at it, the person who has basically been injured has to distill, like, has to disclose the pain to their partner. Like, here's what the pain is, here's what's happened. And this is why it's difficult for any of us to categorize another person's pain. I will tell you guys, I don't love the use of the word betrayal trauma. And here's why, right? Because I've seen a partner have disclosure happen, and to them, it's it's maybe abandonment or rejection or loss. I've had people that receive disclosure and they don't have any trauma from the disclosure, for various reasons, right? But so we use this phrase within recovery work of betrayal trauma, and we do it because we just need to try and simplify what's going on. But I love it when partners tell me, I don't actually have any betrayal. What I've noticed is that I'm now experiencing a loss. And it's like, oh, okay, what's the loss? Well, the loss was that I came into the marriage and I had kind of told myself for whatever reason that I would never experience infidelity.
Hmm.
And so now I have this loss of, like, what I always imagined my relationship to be. And it's truly more of a loss than it is a betrayal. And it's a weird thing to explain to people, because really the wound we receive is how we interpret it. And trust, I'm not suggesting that, well, just interpret it differently and it won't hurt. I'm not, that's not what I'm saying. But how we like, the wound we receive is the way that we interpret it, the way we experience it. And so when we are working through injuries with somebody, we actually need to learn how to disclose, like, here's what this pain feels like, but it takes us time often to figure out what it is. And so I have to explore the pain and ultimately share that with my partner. But if you're in a group of, like, let's say, um other partners, and they're all calling it betrayal, it's really easy for us to be like, yeah, it's betrayal, rather than taking the time to go, well, what actually is it for me? I mean, we might be able to argue that you do a survey and, 65% of the partners are going to say that it's betrayal. Okay, well then, so that's obviously maybe why we use that.
Well, even with that, I'm thinking though, like, but you'd also have to come up with the definitions, of like it, like, do you feel, it's like the feelings wheel, are you feeling this? But like, while you're talking about this, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
I'm
um
glad you interrupted.
when you're talking about like it may feel like abandonment or whatever it is, um do you think if that's like, like, if you, like, I know I have a massive abandonment, would I be more likely to experience that aspect of it than, something that doesn't resonate so deeply with me?
Yeah, so that's where I think when we really get down to it, we are more susceptible to internalizing the wound the way that we've internalized wounds 18 and younger, right? Like, when we
Hmm.
talk about attachment wounding, none of us get through life without having them. But, like, some people are more susceptible to others because of previous experience they've had. And so it kind of comes down to how we internalize previous things. So let's say, for instance, uh, I I lost a parent when I was a kid, and the way that I internalized that was abandonment. Even though the parent died in an accident, to me it felt like, for whatever reason, it was abandonment. Whereas somebody else, maybe more commonly, might say, well, that was loss for me. It wasn't abandonment, right?
Hmm.
And when I'm older, when I experience traumas, it's more likely that I'm going to categorize it similarly to
Hmm.
the trauma that I've already experienced. So then I go, well, this is abandonment, right? This,
Hmm.
and it's not that, oh, well, if it's a it it's a wound. Whatever wound I have as a kid is how it's going to show up as an adult. It's just
Mm-hmm.
going to be more likely that it's going to match whatever it is we're more susceptible to.
Okay.
Um, so yes, like I actually love that you're cluing into that. Like, because anybody could probably go, well, yeah, of course, I received disclosure from my partner, and so yeah, no, it's abandonment, and it's like, well, or not abandonment, it's betrayal, right? Like we have that. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, of course that fits. But as we move forward in recovery, we start to go, you know where this really impacts me, or where I'm already susceptible to these other wounds. And sure, there's some betrayal in there, but like overall, that wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was the loss or the rejection or whatever.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you clarifying.
Yeah, so in order to, if we're actually talking about forgiveness, right? Like, interestingly enough, a lot of partners might say, or even parents to their children, right? People often are like, well, when are you going to forgive me? Right. And if you look at it, like, forgiveness is, well, one, it's the right of that person to decide if they ever will. Like,
Hmm.
and what does that look like for them anyway? Does forgiveness mean that we act like it never happened? Does forgiveness mean there's the same amount of trust in the relationship that there always was, right? Like then you start getting into these weird spaces of, well, what does it actually mean when you say, when am I going to forgive you? Right? Because your definition of forgiveness, it may never be there. Like that I'm going to be like, hey, there's essentially, we're back to having no boundaries. It's like, well, I'm not sure we're ever going to get back there. Like, but but forgiveness really is going to happen when the person who's been wounded actually feels um, secure enough in the relationship to be able to bring the pain to the other person. And so, if we haven't gotten to a space where I can bring the pain to you and you can sit in my pain and not try to fix it, just sit in it and experience it with me. Don't try to make it better. Don't try to explain yourself. Don't try to defend yourself. Don't try to justify, right? Just sit in it and experience it with me. That would be honestly step one in forgiveness ever happening. Now, we can spend the next 6 weeks and go through each of these steps, or the next 6 episodes, if you will, and go through the next 6 steps if you want. But because we do have a couple of questions, but I don't know. What do you?
Well, let's do the questions and then see.
Okay.
So the first question is, my husband has lied to his CSATs and 12-step groups 2 separate tries in recovery, it turns out. If an addict is deep into lying, could they ever stop? If so, what could a partner ever look for to know they're improving? They're already putting so many hours into recovery work and telling me insights and traumas. So it seemed like he was improving, but turns out he was lying and acting out. Is that common or rare? Is this just pure addiction that could be cured, or is this also who he is? I'm moving forward with separation, but I'm reeling and heartbroken and trying to make sense of this. Um, and this is from the betrayed partner, and somebody's like asking, I'm curious about the 6 steps. I have a feeling we'll get to that. So when I'm reading this, so I'm always in the hopeful, because you're saying, could they ever stop? Yeah, I see people, like, we've had guys come to our treatment program over the age of 80. Like, would it have been nicer if they'd gotten help decades before? Sure, but that's not when they came to us. So is there hope that they ever could? Yes. And I unfortunately know lots of people that, not lots, I know some people that go to 12-step meetings and want to be Mr. or Ms., 12-step, and there's a facade, but we miss out on true recovery if we're just, faking it. So I want to do the hope part. I'm going to let Matt talk about, the common and all of those things. So,
Um, I think there's actually a much bigger question here, and so let's here's the question I have for you. Um, it's not whether or not can they ever stop. The question is, how long can you stay in that relationship, right? Because let's say yes, the answer is they could stop. And let's say that, but I have a crystal ball and I can see it perfectly. You are going to be able to last, a total of 4 years. I'm making this up because I have no idea, right? You can last 4 years, but it's actually going to take them 8 years to stop,
mm,
right? Like the reality of it is that when as a partner, you're asking yourself, what do I have to give and for how long can I give it? And at what point maybe is it me saying, I now feel I've given everything I have. I'm at peace to end the relationship and move on with my life. And some people, they're like, I'm in it for the long haul. Like they can lie the rest of their life and I'm gonna stay married and we're gonna figure it out and make the best of it. And I'm like, cool. And I've seen other people who uh I'm going to say this and it's going to sound rude, have had very minimal disclosures where the behavior really isn't maybe even to the level of an addiction, and they end the relationship. And so the different the difference of like people and what their tolerance is like is probably really the bigger question here. However, is it possible this will never stop? Absolutely possible. The lying will never stop, right? Common or rare? I guess it depends. Like it
well,
depends.
and does it really matter?
Well, right.
Yeah, yeah, people go, what are the statistics? I actually have a minor in statistics. I taught statistics. I like statistics. And you know what? With this stuff,
They
it doesn't matter. You've got your relationship.
oh,
That's the
totally.
statistic that matters,
Well, and the funny thing, statistics as well as I do, that you can skew them
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
any way you want in a
Yes.
way. And so here's the hard part. When you say you're moving forward with separation, um, and you're reeling and heartbroken and
Hmm.
trying to make sense of it, like good for you for getting on here. Good for you for asking the question, right? Really, you've got to decide. A lot of times, so I'm often not a huge fan of separations the way that most people appear
Right.
to do them. Most people tend to do a separation on a whim, and then they come to their therapist and they say, "Hey, we're separated." And it's like you didn't use your therapist, who is hopefully trained to do a therapeutic separation. And what I tell people is when you do a therapeutic separation, you essentially create a divorce scenario, and you split time between the kids 50-50. You split finances, you do everything in a divorce scenario, and then you work backwards to, let's say, no longer than 90 days, and then at 90 days we move back in together and we try to go, okay, what did I learn in the last 90 days? Did I feel better? Was I happier alone? Did it feel better to be essentially divorced to some degree than it was to be together? And is that what I really want and long for in my life? Like or hey, you know what, it wasn't what I liked, I didn't want it, I want a better relationship, I'm willing to continue to give this a healing go, if that makes sense. So um I hope that when you're in doing your separation, that you're doing it therapeutically, with some guidance, lots of guidance potentially from your therapist. But you may find in that experience that honestly, you needed that separation to realize you need that distance and you need to find your own healing. And a divorce may end up being the best thing. And I think that in the comments section, um, Tammy put a book that helps people figure that out, right?
So Kristen Snowden in May did a webinar on should I stay or should I go?
Oh, it's a
And
webinar.
yeah, and she pulled some information from John Gottman's information, like 10 questions to journal about, to like, do I even like this person? Like there's some really good questions, because that, I think it often can be the, yeah, we separated, we're doing a therapeutic separation and there's no therapy in it. And I
Right.
think it's also really important, like not even just moving back in 90 days. It's like, what are you looking to see change, like over that,
Right.
like what am I going to do for work on myself? What is my part? What am I expecting my part? Having a plan, so that there's, because otherwise if you just
Yeah,
separate and then you come back together again, nobody's changed.
totally.
That's
No, and
insanity too. So yeah.
yeah, without saying it, I mean, in the rare cases that I do a therapeutic separation with clients, I have a whole um, several sheets of PDFs of questions and everything else. In fact, if somebody's ending a relationship, a really good book that actually has like a an outline for a therapeutic separation in it is actually called When Your Relationship Ends. It's Rebuilding When Your Relationship Ends by Bruce Fisher. Really enjoyed that book. I've only read little parts of it, but I've had clients tell me that it's a game changer as far as moving forward. And so, but it's something I think needs to be looked at and explored. I think it's healthiest when we are in a relationship and we know we could choose to get out at any time and that would be okay. I think it's unfortunate when people are like, no, I will never leave. And I'm like, that's unfortunate. Like, I'm okay if you never leave, but it might be good to realize that there are times and places where leaving would actually be a healthy choice for you. So,
For you both. I mean, we often, unfortunately, until there is, kind of the, like, the boundary in that I need to take care of myself and this is not safe for me, and a partner, stands up for themselves, let's put it that way. Then, an addict's going, wait,
yeah,
I was just kidding. I promise I'll do the work, that's an exaggeration, of course, but it's like, until there is, um, I always say nothing changes if nothing changes, so yeah, an addict will absolutely just keep, the other one I say is, until the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same, an addict's not going to change. So as long as I've navigated, sure, you're upset with me, but I'm used to that. Like, cause I still am, doing all this other stuff over
right,
here, so until it goes, wait, now there's a crisis. Now this person is leaving. And that's also data for you. If that person is unwilling, to step into recovery space. I will caveat it, in the 12-step books, it talks about people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates,
oh, there really are.
yes, and that could be the case. I don't know him, but if they are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves, the big books talk about, there are such unfortunates. So sad for them, clearly, has impact on partners as well. But I hear that you are, heartbroken and reeling. And I mentioned before we started recording that, we just had the Empowered Women's Retreat this last weekend. We have another plan for October 24th through 27th. It is unbelievable to see the difference in the women from Thursday night when they arrive to Saturday night, we end on Sunday. And, they go from being heartbroken and reeling to they're laughing with other people. He didn't change, but they got the support. We're doing breath work, and it's not just meditation, it's very different. We're doing, psychodramas, we're doing like all kinds of boundary education, like there's all kinds of anger processing. Does that resonate with a few people? It's just different, and I'm grateful to be part of it. And Debbie McCrae, who does the alternating Fridays, is there, and she's brilliant on boundary work, and like that's, I would encourage you to consider giving yourself the gift. The women that showed up, I said, you are the ones that are willing to do the work to heal yourself. He's not going to heal you. It's you being willing to take, it's me, I'm going to work on getting the healing that I need. So we'd be honored to help support anybody who is willing to step into that space. But I hurt for you in the of course you're reeling it, and he's doing I'm a guru at the meetings and everything's so good, but, and
I'm a
unfortunately I
guru.
do see that. Yeah, no, I hate those. I shouldn't say that. I've been going to meetings a long time. I actually, I own that. I'm going to say I don't like the gurus in meetings when they, the ones that pretend like everything is so great. I show up and I tell on myself, like, if I've been doing something, like I have to. I live a life of integrity. So, if I was less than kind to somebody, got to tell on myself, and I'm okay with that because I want to be, continuing to be a better version of myself. I don't have it all together. I won't pretend like
Yeah.
I'll never do this again. I got today, to do the work. So this is on a recording. I hate the gurus. Okay. All
Somebody's
right.
gonna go like highlight that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's
you're
all
gonna
good.
be
I don't care. Betrayed partner, together over 15 years, married 9. The majority of the relationship, my partner cheated. 1 year after disclosure, I found out in the hospital from my partner who had COVID and was admitted and told me. I had no time to figure anything out, really. We moved states with my in-laws, and I had no time to process the move with the in-laws. It was so stressful. It has been just over 3 years. My partner has said he doesn't know if the betrayed partner's pain is real. How do I explain to him that I had no time to process what happened, let alone explain to him the level of pain and betrayal? Oh,
So it's so funny here because my thought process is, why in the world is he saying he doesn't know if your pain is real? Like I'm a little dumbfounded. So how do I explain to him? How about you spend time asking questions? Help me understand why my pain wouldn't be real. So just so we're clear here, and maybe I read the question wrong. You've been together 15 years. You've been married 9. The majority of the relationship, the partner cheated. And then this part, 1 year after disclosure, you moved uh,
in-laws. Yeah, yeah.
with your in-laws. And so I'm trying to figure out, why in the world is he saying he doesn't know if your pain is real? So for me, I'm not going to explain anything, because he's not asking a question, right? He's making a statement. I don't know if your pain is real. Okay. What help me understand why my pain wouldn't be real? So again, I'm not explaining myself. I'm asking a question. What do what do you imagine that has happened that would cause me pain? And so in your mind, if these things you just named would cause me pain, what would heal those things so that now my pain would no longer be real? Can you help me understand that? I'm not going to get vulnerable and try to explain my pain when somebody is telling me that they don't know if my pain is real. I'm going to ask them questions to understand why in the world they would not think that. So if I was reactionary, I might try to explain, which is a really normal thing for most humans to do. Let me explain. Oh boy, let me list it all out for you. Really? So you're telling me you can't list it out for me? And if that's the case, why not? Help me understand why I wouldn't be injured and why that wouldn't be difficult. So maybe I'm misreading the question. I'm not going to help you explain to him that your pain is real. I'm going to help you ask him questions to get to the bottom of, if possible, why in the world he wouldn't see it. Is it not obvious? Um, hmm, yeah, I want to poke him in the eye.
Well, I want to ask them. So here's, I'm going to share a scenario with you, partner. Um, so I cheated on you for 9 years. And then when I was in the hospital, sick, I just kind of vomited on you that I've been cheating all of this time. And then, hey, let's go move close to my family. and all the, and all the in-law crazy stuff in a different place, all of those things. And how would you, how would you feel about that? Now, you wouldn't have acted out, you wouldn't have cheated. So you would have been the person, staying home and being, in the relationship all the way.
Well,
And, go ahead.
well, actually, I think the next statement was by the same person. So let's
Oh,
read that real quick.
okay. I think this is, in my opinion, because it's been over 3 years since the disclosure, and I feel like he wants it to be over. This has been said by him as well. Okay, so if we
Okay.
just, that was a long
So,
time ago, Matt. Like, we don't need to talk
yeah.
about that.
So if what he's saying is, I don't understand why after 3 years you're still feeling pain.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
Yeah. Then I might say, can you help me understand how you and I have worked through this in a way that you think my pain should be gone? So, because if you're telling me, well, I haven't had any slips for 3 years. So, do you think the absence of slips is what creates healing? Right? Like, I mean, I don't know if this is the case, but I might say, because I know that you have childhood trauma and you're not a child anymore, and you haven't been injured the same way since you were a child, but you still feel hurt and pain from that. And so why do you still have pain from your childhood? So it's been 3 years for me. It's been 30 years for you. I'm making this up because I don't know how old you
Yeah.
guys are. It's been 30 years for you, but you still have pain. Why is that? What do you believe has gone on in our relationship that you feel my pain should be gone? Or are you just trying to tell me that my pain is uncomfortable and you don't want to feel my pain anymore? Because if that's what you're telling me, can you just say that out loud? Can you just start telling me out loud, hey, your pain's really uncomfortable for me. I'd really appreciate it if you didn't share it anymore. I can't handle feeling your pain. Let's just be honest about the pain exchange that's going on. Because what I hear is I should be over it. Instead, what I think is probably happening, you're still uncomfortable. Maybe we should talk about why you're uncomfortable with my pain. Because until you can get comfortable with my pain, I'm not sure my pain's going to go away. That's not entirely true, but I think there's a lot of truth there.
The thing that I think would be curious is, like, if I said you have a lot of childhood trauma and you're so, we have guys that don't perceive they haven't, like, no, I had a perfect childhood. But then it's kind of like, then why were you choosing to act out all those times? But
Well,
we have people that go, yeah, no, I don't, I didn't have any, I didn't have any
I
trauma.
don't, my intent isn't to, like, I was just trying to use a quick
Yeah,
example.
no, I get it. So yeah.
There are people who, for all intents and purposes, don't have maybe this major trauma in their childhood. But in a lot of cases, it's like, yeah, but they also didn't learn the coping skills that they needed to learn to not take on addiction, or chemically, they may have had a higher susceptibility to addiction. Right? There's all sorts of possibilities. But yeah, so to the person who submitted that question, I hope what I was saying was helpful. Um, I, I think you aren't going to be able to explain it until you guys settle into understanding why he doesn't want to hear it and what makes your pain so uncomfortable to him. So I hope that's helpful.
Well, it is, because it's really easy. It is uncomfortable. Oh, you're in pain, and oh, my behaviors. You're bringing up that my behaviors cause that. Oh, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to look at that. Like, let's go over
Wait.
here. Yeah.
Can we
So,
talk about your pain without me
mhm.
being the reason in any way? Like, that would feel so much better to me.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I didn't do anything ever. I only cheated on you forever and dumped it on you while I was in the hospital with COVID, and then we moved. Yeah. No, I get it. So yeah. So,
And
like, when you do deep wound care, like, you don't just slap a bandage on, like, like, I won't get gory with medical stuff, but like you have to do wound care. Like there's a whole process, and you
Yeah.
just sticking a bandage on, guess what? It festers underneath and it gets really
Right.
gross and yucky.
Sometimes you need to clean it out. Sometimes you need to, I don't know,
Yes.
cauterize, like I don't know, but like ultimately wound care is an art form.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And so important. Otherwise, that toxic stuff, just think about this. You have that pain of that toxic stuff running around you, all this time. Like, I talk to lots of partners who have chronic medical, immune disorders, like all kinds of stuff, gastric issues. And I'm like, that's because you're hanging on to this toxic stuff, because it's never gotten the healing. Again, why, the healing yourself, is where you can start. What he chooses to do or not do, is ultimately up to him. We always hope that, people choose the healing that they need for themselves, but not everybody does. And speaking to that, Matt, how can someone tell if they themselves or someone else is constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves? There are
Yeah.
such unfortunates.
Yeah, there are such unfortunate. This is such a funny question because I would argue, can somebody who is constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves be honest with themselves about this issue? Probably not. I mean, they might learn that if they say this, uh, that it sounds like accountability. Maybe they have the awareness that it's true, but then uh, they don't. Somebody who is constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves will continue to be dishonest with themselves and others for the remainder of their lives. And I think that maybe they can get better and better at it and less dishonest. But if you're talking about something that is constitutionally incapable, the reality of it is that they won't, right? But I believe that most of us can learn over time. I remember learning about understanding a certain level of dishonesty that I had that wasn't actually in my mind at the time lying. I mean, it was like I was just trying to manage other people's emotions and later had to realize I was being dishonest. And so sometimes people have to become aware that they're even being dishonest. I know I did. And then learning more and more about why does the temptation for being dishonest come up for me? And that takes time and practice. Like as I really started to learn about my own levels of dishonesty, it didn't mean that I was even able to change it. It meant I became more and more aware of it and then had to accept it and slowly make that change. So I don't know if that
And to
makes sense.
me, yeah, no, it does. And to me, it is, accountability. If I am in a 12-step program, which you alluded to, he was, I'm talking to my sponsor. I'm being honest with my sponsor. I am accountable. I am doing the things that I need to do. Lying to myself is denial. And that's where it starts. And then I can lie to everybody else if I'm in denial, oh, that's not so bad or whatever. I was laughing when you were talking about managing other people's emotions. I was like, good luck with that. So,
Yeah, not easy. But and I think that when we talk about accountability and making a change, so making a fundamental change to the dishonest self, um, I don't know anybody who lacks the awareness of their dishonesty who can actually change to being honest without other people calling them out, right? Like there was a time in my life where for the like as weird as it sounds, I was super honest in so many ways. People would ask me questions and I would tell them the truth, right? There was like a complete lack of understanding of where my dishonesty would come in. And unless somebody pointed it out to me, I would probably still be doing it to this day. Like I didn't have the awareness and I wasn't going to be gaining the awareness unless somewhere, somehow I read something or whatever where I went, oh my gosh, I'm being dishonest. Like, my wife probably had to challenge me multiple times. Like, I don't like it when you tell me that you've left work because you're worried that you've disappointed me when you haven't left work. Like, just disappoint me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would I ever want to disappoint you? And she's like, it's worse when you pretend you've left work and you have not. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I needed to gain, she had to tell me over and over until I was like, oh my gosh, I get it now. And I mean, that had to just absolutely drive her bonkers. And that's just simple, dare I say, and it's not healthy, dare I say, innocent lying. It's not okay. None of it was okay. But then take the lying to the level of you know, addiction disclosure or whatever it might be, infidelity, that, and you take lying to that level, and it's like, oh my gosh,
I
so
was think
difficult.
And I was thinking with this person, because it goes to 12 steps, that this sounds like a person, and this is, I don't know him at all, but that has done steps 1, 2, 3, and 12. There are people that do that. They skip, 4 through 9 is cleanup. And guess what? Step 4 is the searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And if you are painstaking about this part of the process, I won't keep quoting Big Book, I promise. But like we
Why
start
not?
to change. Yeah, there you go. We
Don't make
start to
promises.
change. It's one of those things where we get the benefit of the program. We get to live in integrity. We're not lying to ourselves and everyone else. I'm not putting on a false facade of like, I'm little miss program, but over here I'm still doing these things. I'm not lying to my partners and spouse. I'm not lying. I don't have to. And we can have integrity about, I'm 5 minutes later than I said I would, but I'm leaving now. Okay, well then you're really, like, that's integrity. And
Oh, totally.
so we miss out. The promises of the 12 steps come true if we do steps 4 through 9. They don't if we don't. So okay, we have a little bit of time left, so I'm curious, what are the 6 steps?
Well, we'll at least get to the next one. We'll see where we go.
Hmm.
So, if a partner is able to disclose the wound and share the pain, um, then the person in this case who hit the wound has to tune in. They have to be able to actually, like, I'm going to use a strange phrase, like breathe in the pain
Hmm.
and accept that that pain exists. So it's almost like when we were reading that other question, how do I explain and convince him that my pain is real? And it's like, actually, he needs to be able to tune in and literally like breathe in that pain and go, ah, your pain is real. I see it. I feel it, right? And I'm actually grateful, even though I'm nervous, scared, worried, right? I'm grateful you're sharing it with me, right? Because I don't want you to live in pain and be alone. Um, and if this is part of it, I have to openly acknowledge how my behavior hurt you or did damage to you. Now, this doesn't mean I have to take accountability. Now, keep in mind, listen very carefully to what I'm saying here. I don't have to take accountability for the intent to harm you. And this is where a lot of people miss um, wound recovery, because there are times where somebody will want to stay stuck. I didn't mean to. My intent wasn't to hurt you. Like, and this is where things get super confusing, because even though it may be obvious, you may not have intended to, because your plan may have been to keep the infidelity a secret until you die, after you die, and never release it. Your intent does not matter. Now, I'm usually not saying to the other person your intent doesn't matter, because that's going to feel really invalidating to them. But what I'm saying is, hey, can we talk about your intent some other time? Like, can we talk about my intent some other time? If I'm going to work through this with you, I'm putting my intent to the side and I'm accepting that you hurt. I'm tuning in, then I'm accepting that you hurt, and then I'm openly acknowledging I can see how my behavior hurt you. I can see. And if I can't see it, we stay here and I'm like, can you tell me more? Help me understand how this behavior today brought up that pain from 3 years ago. I don't understand. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, don't pretend you understand. Don't pretend to acknowledge. If you do not understand why my behavior today did damage or hurt, why did this bring that up? Right? So the step 2 is tuning in, accepting that the hurt exists, acknowledging how it hurt, or asking a ton of questions until I go, oh, I don't know. Again, I'm not going to say this out loud, but I could think very clearly, wow, I don't agree with why this hurt you this morning. There was zero intent on my part. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But now that you walked me through it, now that I was able to tune in, I can see why you're hurting. I may have come to a completely different conclusion. I may think you're even to some degree irrational for coming to the conclusion you came to, but it doesn't matter. I'm so glad you're sharing with me your hurt. I don't want you to be alone. And that's what we do as partners and as friends. We say, hey, I don't want you to live life alone. Share with me your hurt and pain. Let me share with you my hurt and pain. Usually not at the same time, just so we're clear. We hold space for one person to hurt at a time until we're able to have the skill set to do both. So, any questions on that second step before I run?
Well, I do, because it's actually more of a comment, because you're going, I don't understand, but you're not going, I don't understand. You're going, I don't understand, and I'm being curious, and I want to understand.
I want to
Very
understand.
different tone, because I suspect it can come off as like, I don't understand, and almost like you're nuts for thinking that, rather
Yeah.
than I don't understand and help me understand.
Yeah, help me understand. We will stay in step 2 for the rest of our lives while I try to understand your pain, if we have to stay here because you matter to me. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a question. What are the collective 6 steps called?
I have no idea.
There you go. So that means we have 6 more minutes, so you can go to the next one, but you have to come back in 2 weeks for the rest. So
Yeah. So you want me to jump to the next one?
please.
Okay. The third step I'm going to tell you guys about is the wounded one then shares the core of the hurt. And here's where it gets so difficult. I shared the core of my hurt without blaming, without criticizing, without defining you as my partner. You are a liar. That would be blaming, criticizing, or defining. You are an addict. You are a cheater, right? You will never share unless your partner has the ability for you to go to that space, which is understandable. You're never going to typically be able to sit in that space with each other. Now, I might say, when you have lied, the hurt that comes up for me, when I perceived you were lying this morning, the hurt that came up for me was this, right? When I am reminded of the addiction that you have struggled with, the hurt that comes up with me is this. When I'm reminded that you cheated, this is the hurt and pain that comes up. But when I start calling you a liar, you an addict, you a cheater. That's not helping in the steps. That's now I'm in blaming, I'm in criticizing, I'm in defining you and labeling you. Those are not going to help. So I then in that space, I have to get to the core of my hurt. And I need to share that with you in a way without making it about you. This is the hurt that exists inside of me. And you may have hit this raw spot for me, but I now uh, share it with you as my partner, hoping you come in and give me comfort. So
I really appreciate you defining those behaviors, like when you lied, when you cheated. And I hear way too often people labeling you are an abuser, you are an offender, rather than your behavior was abusive, your behavior was offensive. Absolutely true. But
right,
and you've lied, and but it almost is like there's no hope. If you are a liar, you are a liar. Now,
right,
if your behavior is that you lie, can you change your behavior and learn to tell the truth? Absolutely.
right. The same tone that you talked about in step two, if you're like, well, I don't understand, that's ridiculous, right? That same tone applies. I can come to you and say, hey, I know that that there was a time where you lied, or I know that you're still working on the behavior of lying, right? Like I know that when you cheated, right? There's the same, I hate to say it this way, but the same tone that the other person is accountable for, which is I don't understand, right? As a wounded partner, you're in that same space. Your tone, or really the intent at which you're coming at them, is important as well. We can't go through forgiveness if we both aren't being vulnerable in that process, however long it takes.
Well, and I often share, what is the goal? If the goal is being vengeful, revenge, have at it. If the goal is healing, if you want healing for yourself, if you want healing for the relationship, why would we not want to do our best to set it up for successful transformation? I hear people a lot better when we're having a curious conversation than when somebody's, coming after me. Like, well, I just I no longer engage. I used to fight a lot, and I just can't do that anymore. It's not a comfortable space. So I choose not to do so. But then I'm also not working on healing the relationship. If I choose to step away because there's no hope in that moment, but man, somebody comes at me, even if it's like we're completely on opposite sides of stuff, but I'm curious and I want to know more, and we can navigate that space. Matt, I hadn't even considered that aspect of it. Thank you for sharing that for me. I still may not agree, but at least I know where you're coming from.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay, so
So we'll have
we're out
to,
of time. We've got more. Come back in 2 weeks.
yeah, we'll have to remember because
I'll
it'll be
send you
fun.
an email now. All right.
Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you
Bye.
guys.